Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 87 is here. I'm excited to bring it to you because essentially I just recorded a whole episode with my guest here, Zilla Vodnas. Before we even started recording, we were having so much fun, and I'm hoping you have a lot of fun listening to this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, the great comedian Zilla Vodnas. Zilla, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Franklin. I'm so excited. We did totally have a whole podcast prior to this.
I'm not kidding. We solved all the world's issues like in one fell swoop, like, instantly. A woman from New York and a man from West Virginia have solved the entire world's problems.
I know. It's okay, that's the ticket, right? For what we do in 2024. Franklin, Zilla, we that's it. We're gonna defeat Joe and Kamala. No.
we could. We could. I don't know. Can Democrats like beat I'm so stupid. Like they can't beat Joe, right? Like
No, no, no.
he
I mean, well, also we should do a dual ticket. We should do no party. We deconstructing, Franklin. We're just gonna be like, we have no party affiliation. No
That's true. We're called
party.
Welcome to the so it's welcome to the party and then we will have so much fun and everyone's invited and actually you can be the president. I want to be the vice. I want to be VP.
You strike me. It's great. I feel like that's a fit for you. I'm really nervous now about the possibility. No, we're not gonna be president. But in this made up situation, I do feel like you give me the like vibes of when Obama had Joe and Joe was like his wingman. I feel like
Yeah.
that's you, Franklin. You're gonna be
Yeah. No.
charming the
I'm your
piss
wingman.
off of America and making sure we got everything going okay.
Yeah, and then you'll get in trouble because you wore a tan suit and that's it. And and
That's
and
it.
that'll be your biggest scandal.
A tan. I'm gonna wear a tan suit, which tan or plaid. I'm gonna wear something super tacky. They're gonna be like, "Oh, this lady."
People are gonna call me like Grandpa Frank, and then they're gonna see me shooting basketball, and they're like, "Look how relatable he is." It's gonna be so much fun. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm having so much fun.
So many memes, Franklin.
All right. So where can the people follow you at Zilla?
On Instagram at Zilla Vodnas, on Twitch at Zilla_Vodnas, and also on YouTube.
No Twitter. You don't want people to go to your
I,
Twitter?
I do have Twitter. I'm medium at Twitter.
Okay, fair enough. But she has a really good Instagram, guys. She's super artsy and a ton of fun to watch. I watch her show Zilla Vision. Where can they watch that at?
That's on Twitch on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on the Comedy Hub.
And she always brings out a good lineup on there, and it's really funny stuff. And I watched you had this sketch with like Muppets. It was crazy. My mom even laughed. She doesn't laugh at anything, and so that's your stamp of approval right there.
Yes, mama proof. Thank you.
Mom approved. An old white woman from the South loves your stuff, so you got that.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
tell everybody. Everybody
so
with
I'm very.
ears.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said I'm gonna tell everybody with ears. I'm gonna be like, you know what happened yesterday? I got approval from a white woman from the South. I'm gonna tell
That's right.
that.
But the thing, so you're a very artsy person, and we've had a couple of Zoom gigs together. But I'm curious about your comedy start. I'm very curious of what the people that inspired you and the steps that you took to get where you are today, and what avenues like led you to wanting to be a comedian. I'm very curious about this for you.
Okay, so I'm gonna be completely transparent, and I apologize in advance to anyone listening. Um, but I was not one of those people that like grew up and like from 5 years old wanted to be a stand up. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, for me, I always just wanted to entertain people. So, like, I went to film school and I worked in production. I was a film editor for a little bit, and I always liked storytelling more than anything. Like, I was in a
Yeah.
storytelling contest when I was a kid, and I remember the rush of like remembering all of the parts of something and then repeating it and still trying to keep people engaged, which is tough, like
Yeah.
public speaking. And then I want to say, so about 6 years ago, I went to a burlesque show, and the host was a comedian, and he was so god awful um, that I looked at a friend next to me and I was like, "Man, if I'd have known that anybody could do
I
this,"
could do that.
right? Because I really like burlesque. I don't wanna do burlesque, but I was like, "Yo, wait a minute. You mean to tell me they gonna pay me to host a night of burlesque with all these foxy, smoky people, and this lovely" it was at this place called Joe's Pub, which is at the Public Theater, so it was, like, just this very
Burlesque,
swank
is that like Chicago? Is that like the Chicago movie?
that yes, yes, and that
Okay.
so burlesque is like strip, like striptease, um,
Yeah,
and it's like an entire art form. People take it super seriously. So they had these like really gorgeous women doing
yeah.
this, like striptease in this really swanky bar, and this guy is just what he is just fumbling the bag. You know what I mean? Like he was being offensive. He was like the audience was like chattering during his set,
Yeah.
like he wasn't using it to it was just like, wow, oh my God, I know.
Did he come out, like, after every, person did their
Yes.
dance?
Yes. So he was
Oh, so every time they're like, "Oh god,
yes. So it
this
would be
guy's
this
back."
really dope burlesque, and then now at the same time, I was a school teacher, a high school teacher in New York City, and
Uh-huh.
being a high school teacher, you have to get over your fear of just about everything because
Yeah.
you have to like I was tasked with the futures of these bright wonderful students. I was
Mhm.
tasked with keeping their engagement on some really boring topics. So that became I learned to write to get to a point. I learned to speak to get to a point because it's like you gotta stay in high school, right? You got a 45-minute period or 50-minute period. You're lucky if you get the students to listen for a good 10 minutes because after that
Yeah.
it's got to be work or something else, right? You got to keep them engaged. So I had a little bit more security in my level of engaging people. So I was like, I say this to my friend. I'm like, oh my God, what? I could have this job. I could be hosting burlesque. And my friend looked at me, Meg, and her current husband. They said, oh, yeah, we'd go see you. Like, yo, if you do that shit, that's crazy. You're going to do that? We'll go. And that was it. Like, I was like, I really want to do this. Now, I was really busy as a teacher and I put it off. You know what I mean? You always say like, "Oh, I'll do it." But with comedy it's kind of tough cuz you got to find an open mic, right?
Right.
You got to write material. For me, a lot of the prep was for months. I said I wanted to do it. For months I went to comedy shows all over New York. I wanted to see who was doing it. I wanted to see what they were doing. I wanted to
You just
see
went, you didn't perform?
No, I just went.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was like you're, like, studying the art essentially.
Yes, and I was like, "Is this the thing I wanna do? Do I think I can do it?" I noted who I really loved. Then I try if I saw them again, I loved and you'll know this, Franklin, because it's like you do comedy. Sometimes you can see a person that you adore absolutely crush, and then the wildest thing will happen. They'll take that same material, and you will watch them absolutely eat shit in a different room. And, like
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's like you have comedians that say, like, it's never the audience's fault, but it's so hard to gauge that because you do well and then you suck. It's so weird. It's
yes.
so weird.
So that also helped me, like, "Alright, that shit's gonna happen to you." You know what I mean? Like, you'll win some, you'll lose some. And then what
Yeah.
ended up happening is when I went to that burlesque show, I was there, with a friend, and, like, we had, like, on and off again dated, and I bumped into him months later, and he was like, "Ha, remember when you said you were gonna do stand-up? Psh, I bet you haven't even done it."
Ooh.
Yeah, so I got so mad, so I was like, "Well, funny you should ask. I'm doing it this weekend," and then I had to go and do it.
Did he show up?
No, but, like,
Oh,
I had to
that would
do it.
be if he sat there arms crossed, be like, "We'll see how funny she is." Like, that'd be pretty petty. I'd
Well, what's
laugh.
funny is that then after, like, I did it, and then years later, he was like, "Oh, shit, you've been absolutely doing this thing, you're crushing it, I see on Instagram." All I did was and Franklin, sorry to be this generation, but I was like, "Shit, now that means I gotta do comedy and put it on the gram," because it's like, that's the only way you can prove you did something. And
Oh, man, it's very easy to look like you murder and put stuff on the internet, and
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
totally understand.
And I have to tell you, for some reason, because the universe be like that, every time you will absolutely destroy, light the comedy club on fire, either your phone wouldn't work proper and the recording
Oh my
wouldn't
god,
work,
yes.
or you get really bad sound.
Oh my god, my one of my best nights of doing stand-up, I had my phone recording, like, on the side, like, on the chair or whatever, and I was recording myself, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be able to pick up all these laughs, this is gonna be great," and then I get off the side of the stage, and I hit playback, and all it recorded was me hitting start, and that's
And
it, and
and
I
that's
was like,
yes, yes.
"Oh,
So, yeah.
devastated."
And then so I started doing comedy, and what I reacted to the most was it was a very gatekeepy like, I don't know if you had a similar experience to some like, people are like, "Who are you? Wait a minute, who are you? You're doing comedy? Are you even funny?" You get this, like,
Yeah.
kind of pushback. And
No, it's kind of gatekeepy,
yeah.
there's weird rules.
And also there's, like, some people, give stage time to only their friends. I've seen people only
Yeah.
book, you know, the same people over and over. And that actually was like fuel on the fire. Like I loved that part of it. It became like I was a high school teacher and then on the weekends and nights I was doing comedy, and
Wow.
it made me a better teacher because I started to get funnier in my lessons, and then it also made me a better comic because I w I was a high school teacher in New York City. I've been roasted so many
Yeah,
times.
yeah. No, you've been you've been in some tough rooms. I mean,
Yes,
you've been
and
in some tough rooms.
so, like, even the worst heckle I've ever gotten in a club is nothing compared to, like, a student who was, say, upset with me, especially, like, you keep kids on detention. There was a time I had
Yeah.
a homeroom, and I would have to keep detention because it's you have to set a certain standard, and I'd be like, "Alright, you're staying with me for lunch," and that's just me trying to eat my lunch for 30 minutes while a kid is like, "You know what's wrong with you?" And just
Oh my gosh.
because they're human
Oh,
beings. Also, though, they showed me I mean, I learned so much in timing for my students. There's always the funniest kid in the class, and there's a reason
yeah.
why that kid is the funniest. It's good timing. It's ability to do impressions, like
Oh,
it
yeah. Oh, yeah.
so it's like watching comics on both ends. It's like comics in the classroom and then comics on stage. And
Yeah. I guarantee you there's gonna be a student that had your class that ends up being a comic. I guarantee it.
absolutely, absolutely, especially because the coolest thing about I mean, of course, also the experiences with the students, but the, like, coolest selfish thing for being a teacher was it made me ready for anything and, like, also ready to pivot. You can
Mhm.
never, when you teach and something goes wrong, you can't waste any time. You pivot and you try to make the best of whatever happens. So it's like if you're doing a science experiment and it goes wrong, then you guys start talking about why this science experiment went wrong. Like you make the best of what you get. And so being able to always approach the stage like that, which is like even if I like did badly, did I at least know that that one new thing I wrote down got a laugh?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So they fed into each other, and then I hit a point where I wanted to do comedy full time, which is fairly recent. I quit teaching about a year ago. So
That's so cool, though. I'm really happy that you were able to make that leap. That's awesome.
oh, no, it was incredibly hard, and I really do miss it, like, so often.
Okay, never mind. I redact
Oh,
that.
no.
Redact that.
No. No, not redacted. Thank you. I, like, appreciate, like, you try to look at the positives. That being said, there's nothing cooler than cool high school kids. And I don't mean, like, cool, like, generically, like, the cool
They scare me. High school kids are terrifying.
but if you can win them over, it's like How to Train Your Dragon. Does that make sense? It's like they're terrifying, but yo, if you let them know that you got their back, they got your back, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, I still talk to some of my kids contact me on Instagram. It's hilarious, but
Yeah. Oh,
they'll
yeah.
message me and just ask me how I'm doing, and I'm like, "Oh, great. You can't follow me. Please don't."
Please do not follow me. Oh my gosh. I can only what was your, like, main subject? I mean, how did it work for
So,
you?
I
What'd
taught
you say?
students I taught students who were on the autism spectrum and who
Ah,
were emotionally disturbed. And when you teach students in the setting that I taught in, um, you they learn either all subjects from you or they learn one subject from you. So for half
mhm.
of the time, I taught every subject. I taught math, science, high school math, high school science, history, like history. It was everything. But then the second half, I was afforded the absolute luxury of being able to teach um, film. And, I taught film to my
Wow.
students, and that was, like, the greatest outcome. And then what ended up happening is I had to change schools, and I lost that program, and I think that was a big reason why I stopped. For I took a break because it was just like, "Alright." But teaching film to students was amazing, especially kids that, like we used to make music videos, and I gotta tell you,
Wow.
I won them all over because they'd watch something on Instagram and be like, "Oh, I really like this." And I'd be like, "Hey, you wanna do that?" And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we got lights. Come on, we could, like, we
So
could
wait, were you, like, recreating, like, Bobby Shmurda videos in your class?
well, oh my god. I Bobby Shmurda was, like, so insanely popular at one point. The Shmoney dance, like, I
The
hosted
Shmoney dance. I hit that in many a college club.
yes, but, like, no, we yeah, so one of my kids could freestyle, and I was like, "Yay, record a freestyle. Let's do it." And, like, even just the feeling of, like, they would think I'd be the teacher. I'd be like, "Don't freestyle in class, in the middle of class.
Yeah.
Freestyle later and let's record it." And
But you earned that respect, and they had that mutual respect of, "I'm not gonna freestyle in class, Miss
yes,
Z."
because it's like because I value what you're doing. You are really good at
Wow.
freestyling. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those kids have incredible talents, and that's the coolest. Like there are many evils to TikTok, but one of the coolest things about TikTok is if you have any sort of teeny tiny, small, crazy talent, if you put it on TikTok, you have an audience.
Yeah, but you could be like me and be, funny and then also get mercilessly roasted in the comments by 16-year-old girls.
Don't look in the comments, Franklin.
I'm not kidding you. I've not posted on there in a long time, and they didn't usher me away from the app. I left under my own, decision. But there was a time, like I'd say a year ago, today I had this video like million views and stuff like that, and then I post another one like 500,000 views. And like the one joke took off about Gen Z girls, which I am a part of Gen Z, and I was talking about girls my age, and the people that were like 15 were taking offense to him. It's like, "You're not involved with this. Please stop messaging me." Like they would mercilessly, mercilessly roast me.
So I guess that yeah, I think so is roasting gonna become the norm? Like, are we all just gonna is it
No, I don't think it is because if you roasted back, they would immediately like they like cry, and if they
okay.
call me every ism. They called me every ism and ist under the sun if I replied to them. If that makes sense.
Yes, I get completely. And also, I
Yeah,
know you ain't got time for all that. You're trying to be funny. You're not out here trying to
yeah,
waste your time. But yes, so that's how I like teaching and comedy kind of met together. And you know, those kids are, they scary, but everybody just wants to be essentially, yeah. It goes back to what you were saying. Is just people just want you to value what they can do, right?
yeah.
Hey, I can do this
That's
thing.
so cool. That's so cool that you would like allow your students to have that creative outlet, and I'm sure that helped with them immensely, and they probably looked forward to your class. But and I'm really curious because you didn't really say anything. So like your introduction to comedy was much different than most comedians, but so there was never like a time when you were younger that you watched a comic on TV or something like that, and
Oh,
you're like, "Wow, that's
absolutely, all
really
the
cool."
time, but I just didn't think I think I was too insecure to do comedy. Comedy's scary, and I think
Yeah.
some people, rely on their insecurity, like, yeah, I'm sure you know comics that their comedy is actually driven by, constantly making fun of themselves and constantly
Yeah.
pointing out their flaws, which is totally a vibe. It's not my vibe, and, like, I don't knock it, it's just not a thing I do, but I think at the time, I was, like, incredibly I would have been crushed in, like, it happened at the right time. I loved comedy, adored it. Loved Eddie
Yeah.
Murphy, loved Whoopi Goldberg, very big fan of, like, comedy, comic relief where, I was lucky enough to experience the heyday of Robin Williams and, like, just this in the '80s was the time for comedy in the '90s, early '90s,
Yeah.
even when you think of, it sounds crazy. Whether or not you like someone's comedy, you have to acknowledge if they were a cultural touchstone. Oh my god, I can't even tell you about Dane Cook. When Dane Cook dropped, everybody loved Dane Cook. You know what I mean? Like, so I always was in this admiration of just people, um, as a person who writes, you have to understand that that is created out of their mind.
Yeah.
This a
Well,
comic.
unless you're Dane Cook, then it was created by, like, Louis CK, and then you
Yes,
just took
or
it.
like whoever's writing for you, but there's still this persona. You get dressed a certain way. With Zane Cook, everything was Ed Hardy. Everything he had a
Oh
whole
my gosh, I forgot about that. He would wear, like he was a regular person, not a professional athlete, and he would wear wristbands.
yes, and he would also like he wasn't really that college dude, but his whole angle was I'm that college dude. Like he toured cities being like, "Yo, I'm the bro you want to play beer pong with. I'm that guy."
Yeah, like,
You
I'm
know,
pretty sure he had a whole thing called, like, Tourgasm. I'm pretty sure that was, like, one of his
and
big tours, and it was just
yes,
colleges.
and it was just college. So I've always been in awe of comedy. Like I've always considered comedy an art form. Um,
Yeah.
when full disclosure, I am completely aware of what Louis CK did, but I have to be honest and tell you that for many years before that was revealed, I completely was a huge Louis CK fan. You know what I mean? So it's like I
I mean,
love
I don't think anyone should shame you for being like, that was your introduction to comedy. This was before all that stuff came out. I think you're good.
yes, but it was interesting to be a comic when that also the shit hit the fan. That was also
Yeah.
interesting because I do understand the nature of like one time I did like just how certain like how women feel in comedy is something to consider with the Louis CK thing. It's like you have to check your fandom to also be like, oh shit, but also this is a thing that happened, you know? But
Right.
that was like before he got before him and Aziz got enmeshed in their scandals, they were the rise of the stand-up comic again. Before the pandemic, stand-ups were doing
Yeah.
stadiums again. Stand-ups were, Aziz has that giant show at MSG. So it's like, yeah, I've always seen that. Do I think anything that happened in the 2000s or 2010s compares at all to early 80s comedy like Eddie Murphy, Carlin, Bill Hicks, any number of Robin Williams? No, not at all. I still think uh society is not as warm. I feel like comedy used to be such a big deal. Like
Yeah.
comedy movies used to have like Adam Sandler, is that the last person who was the comedian who also did movies? Do you know what I mean? Like in the 80s, like almost all the movies had like comedians in them. So it's like,
Well, I mean, I think they throw them into, like, character, like, pieces now, but I don't think they're, like, the main person.
no, I don't think anyone's unlocked that level again, where it's like a Eddie Murphy where he's just
Well, they're not making, expensive amount like, the comedy movies they're making now are really cheap. No, they're not spending a lot of movie on
absolutely.
comedy movies.
And you're 100% right. Like they're literally like just these like kind of mumblecore or also like smaller like dating comedies. They're not these.
I guess this leads into you being a total cinephile, so you're absolutely gonna talk circles around me here, but it's like, um, the comedy movies, kinda like 2008, 2009, it's like the last hurrah of really good comedy movies, and since then, 2010 on, it's been like a meh, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, and I think the one thing like genre films, I think the pure
There was that big writer strike, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, not to distract you.
no, not at all. I think there were specifically that genre, meaning like I think what we do now with movies is there's so much like there's not a straight up comedy movie coming out very often.
Yeah,
Like
dramedy or this,
yeah, they'll
that.
do dramedy or they'll do like an action movie that has funny elements or they'll like cuz even some of the funniest lines when I think of the last scene in a movie in 2020, so last year, the funniest scene in a movie to me was in Uncut Gems, and that is not at all a comedy, like
It's kind of funny.
oh, no, the part when he's watching his daughter at the play and the, like, gangsters are waiting for him at the ba that's hilarious. That is
Oh, yeah.
hilarious, but it's also incredibly scary, but it's also hilarious? So I think we
That
do
was
that.
a that was a good look in the mirror for me because I was an addict. I was a gambling addict, and, like, so for that to, like, see him go down that crazy path, it's like, I really just don't wanna get involved, like, I don't want that to be my life, so I kinda, like, stopped because of that
Well,
movie.
that makes me really happy, and that's also I think the point of the movie is, like, when do you stop? And this is the story of a guy that essentially never stops until he's forced.
I've been in that brain before, I know his brain, I can promise you this, Zilla, he was never gonna stop. He won that big bet, he was gonna continue
I
to
was gonna keep
gamble.
going, right?
No, he was not gonna stop, no.
But yes, you're absolutely right. They also don't make what I like to call the date comedy. There was a whole time when they used to have a movie, they would usually drop on Valentine's Day or they would have a couple
Ooh,
every week, every couple of weeks, where it was like a comedy that people went to go on dates when like, movie theaters will open. How
yeah.
to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is very much that. What's the other one we were saying? Fool's Gold is the other one.
Fool's Gold. Are we just talking about McConaughey and Kate Hudson movies? Yeah, I mean, like McConaughey rom-coms. He had that one with J Lo, I think, The Wedding
Yes,
Planner.
The Wedding Planner, and that's yeah, you're exactly right. It's the rom-com. Like, where did the rom-com go? It's not a
I really hope I have to develop muscle mass, but I would love to be put me in the rom-coms. I love a rom-com.
Franklin coming for them rom-coms. I love it.
I will be the rom-com guy. I will take that torch. I will carry it. I love rom-coms. I'm being dead serious.
Oh, I think rom-coms are fantastic, and I think the 2 that we're gonna talk about today are I think that we're gonna answer our question. So our thesis is why in 2021 in super hyper cancel culture is a thing, right? So why
Yeah.
don't they make the rom-com as readily as they used to? And I think it has a lot to do with gender norms because I think that's what I wanted to talk to you about in
Again, you're gonna talk circles around me on this subject,
No,
especially if we're
I
talking
think
about
you got
gender
it. I
norms.
think you got it. I think you got it.
I didn't know we were talking about gender norms. I have notes that we're talking about Pretty Woman, and we're gonna talk about How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I don't know if we're gonna talk about gender. No, I'm just
No, but
kidding.
I mean like dating, like the weird, how we approach dating now versus
Yeah,
10.
definitely. We're definitely gonna get into the dating and everything. Um, yeah, but again, I love a rom-com. I love a comedy movie. I It does kind of suck that they're not as good anymore. I have this take. I want to share this take with you, and then we can get into the actual rom-com thing. But as far as comedy movies go, here's a really bold take. The f- let's go to 2009, and it's the first time you ever watched the first Hangover movie. Is that not the funniest movie you had seen in your life up to that point?
What I remember about The Hangover is it was one of the few movies where if you was in a room with like 20 people, all 20 people were laughing. It is
Oh
the
my god.
incredible crowd pleaser. And what's funny is they do a really wonderful thing is they cover their bases and they do every type of comedy possible in The Hangover. There's wordplay, there's visual gag, there's
Yep.
uh
There's
laugh.
Straight Man, there's
Yes.
Goofball.
Yep, yep. So, it's the type of thing that, that experience is like I lived in Texas when The Hangover came out, and I remember a buddy of mine just being like, "Oh my god, you gotta see this movie." And it just,
Yeah.
people watching it and just everyone, moms, dads, no matter the age, could laugh at The Hangover.
People love that movie so much they would have their Sprint Razor phone or whatever, and their ringtone would be that song that Stu sang about the tigers.
Yes, and also, I love sometimes I see these out in the wild in, New York. They have these baby on board decals, and it's the little
Wow, and
baby with the shades, so that's a hilarious, like, weird. I feel like beards and mustaches, like Galifianakis's, like, whole vibe, that, like, was a cultural movement, like,
yeah.
people started to look like that, like or maybe you was a Bradley, there's a flavor for
I
every.
think in my mind I wanted to be Bradley, but in reality I was just the guy who got lost.
I think, you got Bradley looks, so that's that you could be both.
Did you Okay, hold on. Rewind that. Did everyone just hear that?
I'll say it again for the record. Bradley looks, Franklin. You're not a
Oh,
Galifianakis. What are you?
oh my god. I could die and go to heaven. Oh my god.
Well, there you go. So yes, but I agree with you. Yeah, The Hangover was like a movement, like like that was a cultural moment.
Yeah.
Everybody loved The Hangover.
And everybody started. I guarantee. I don't know if they had the iTunes stats or whatever, but "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins had to have gotten 1 billion streams.
Yes, and then it's so funny because that's another cultural touchstone. Like every couple of years, remember they had that those young men did that video where they watched it, right? And they did a reaction video, and when the drum part hits, they made these really hilarious faces and they went viral. So it's like In the Air Tonight, a good movie knew that In the Air Tonight would always be so like culturally relevant. And I think frankly like the in a couple years I bet you they'll do either a remake or they'll do another Hangover movie.
I I I'm very curious if they do that though. I mean, like I'm watching it back, and you hate to say the word cancel and everything, but like I feel like some of these jokes they just wouldn't happen. There's a lot of like jokes about the guy being a small Asian man. Like there's a lot of those
Oh
jokes. I
yeah,
don't know if
absolutely.
people would let that fly.
No, I think they wouldn't, and I think that's, like, something that you can let go. I think, like, there are other gags to be had there. Thankfully, Ken Jeong made, like, the best career out of you know what I mean? Like, he's
Yeah.
proven to be so much more, which I think is
Oh
really
yeah, I watch him on that show with the masked people.
Yes, the Masked Singer, and also, like, he played a doctor and a bunch of stuff, so, like, he, I think, is avoided the, like, pitfall of constantly playing, like, into said stereotypes and biases, but,
Yeah, never let them put you in a box, kids.
yeah, no, and he like, got out of that. And I think they wouldn't do it that way again. I even think that I don't know them personally, but I happen to feel like someone like Bradley Cooper and Zach Galifianakis, especially with baskets and how progressive that was. Like, I feel like if
Mhm.
someone was like, "Yo, we're gonna cut these jokes," they'd be like, "Nah, that seems like a good idea," you know? Like the racial stuff, yeah, I get it, but I think um yeah, and I think that the same thing that you were saying about, like, I don't know that they can do a Hangover is, I think, the perfect segue into, like, the rom-com would
Yeah.
have to be dismantled and rebuilt for newer audiences, cause like
we do have to make a new rom-com because these rom-coms, obviously it's male driven and it's not going to be the girl driving the relationship, it's the guy driving the relationship in both of these, and borderline stalkerish, creepy, but we're under this veil that it's a love movie, so we're not looking at it through the lens that it's this guy's creepy. You change the music in some of those scenes and it becomes a horror film.
yes, absolutely. And also, um, there's a lot of like things that we now have terms for things. Like when I first started dating, they didn't have gaslighting wasn't a term that like people readily used. You didn't
Yeah,
like
I had to learn that term. I still is someone's making you feel dumb? Is that term?
it's essentially like manipulating. So if you're in a situation, say you feel wronged, Franklin, and you're like, "Hey, I feel wronged," it would be the other person completely manipulating you into believing that you made a mistake. Like, no, no, you
Got it.
yeah, do you get what I mean? So it's like, "Hey, this is wrong." No, that's all in your head type of deal.
So it's like, I left a dish in the sink. It's like, "No, you no," it's like, "You left a dish in the sink." It's like, "No, you didn't." Or,
Okay.
"You left the
Yeah.
dish in the sink."
So let's
Whatever.
yeah, no,
I'm
but
dumb.
let's put this into no, you're not. Let's put this into perspective because I had to learn it this way. You put it into perspective of relationship. So say you
Okay.
like you someone told you that you were gonna go out, then they canceled and they didn't even fucking cancel, they just didn't show up. And
Yeah.
you were like, oh, hey, you didn't show up and that was wrong. And they were like, no, actually, you're being touchy. Do you see how that's gaslighting? Because it's like, I'm not admitting I'm
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it could be even
Yeah.
like mild things where it's essentially just a form of manipulation, right? So you're like making the other person feel dumb, back to what you said earlier, for thinking,
Well, and if that's the case, then I've been gaslit 10,000 times because I can't tell you how many dates I've set up and then they just go ghost. They just go dark.
well, no, to gaslight you would be like, actually, I'm a great person. You're the problem. Like if they'd have told you that, then they're like gaslighting because it's like, nah, man, that's you're literally making up another reality. So that's what it is, you know. But yeah, and I feel like a lot of like so um the psychiatrist part of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is incredibly bizarre and mean when she goes to the couples therapist
Mhm.
and like so in the movie, if y'all haven't seen How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, right? So Kate Hudson, it's this rom-com where like Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey essentially are trying to swindle each other for their own reasons. They have to stay
Yes.
together for 10 days, right? It's for him, it's because he wants to get this advertising contract. For her, it's because she writes these cutesy little, you know,
Our
art
dating articles, yeah.
yeah, for like Cosmo, which a lot of what you need to understand about this movie is that Cosmo used to be bananas in the like early 2000s in its propaganda. Kind of like how what is there was a bunch of men's magazines that like how men's
GQ maybe?
yeah, yes, yeah, GQ or like there was there like where it was like they would tell you like how to land a girl in X amount.
Redbook?
Yes. So all of these magazines exist. So she writes for one of those magazines and she's gonna do How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And what is interesting about what she chooses to do um, is that it's all things that are stereotypically things that girls who are annoying do. Do you get what I mean, Franklin? Like they
Mhm.
they go directly for things like so she has stuffed animals on her bed, which oh my god, red flag. I would run screaming if you are an adult and we trying to hook up and you got stuffed animals. If that is so
And
creepy.
maybe they probably and then I've had a situation like this before. You get into the bedroom with someone, and they start using a baby voice.
Yeah.
I immediately
So
try to
now
find a
we
way
have
out of
the
there.
second thing she does. She calls his private parts Princess Sophia, right?
Yep.
That's a whole gag.
But then he says he wants it to be called Spike, which I argue is a worse name for your Johnson than Princess Sophia. Spike?
It's
Just
awesome.
driving it in there? No.
That's what no, and it's so funny. I'm glad that your mind went there because it's so funny because essentially what the story is the feminine versus the masculine. Except she's
Yeah.
doing this garish interpretation, right, of what um shitty girlfriend does. She calls it Princess Sophia. She demeans him, like she questions his sexuality at the therapist. She buys a dog, a Chinese crested, and they dress alike, which is another thing. If I had a partner who was like, "Yo, let's dress like each other," Halloween, and that's about it. You know, like Well, yeah,
I've always wanted to do a couple's costume. I wanna do a couple's
no,
costume.
custom
Ah,
a really good couple's costume is, like, pop of the top's awesome, but it's like, I'm not gonna I mean, if someone like, yeah, if you had, like, a camel hair jacket and then you were like, "Oh, and I also think, like, got you one," like, yeah, it's a nice gesture, but she's literally, like, dressing him exactly the same.
yeah.
And, the weird thing is, like, for some reason, she thinks being a vegetarian is a really bad thing, and, like
I haven't even looked at it through that p oh my gosh, yeah, you're
yeah,
right, it is kinda like that.
yeah, it's like she is like, "Oh, wouldn't a guy really hate it if you didn't eat meat?" Even though she does eat meat. But yeah, so they
While the Knicks are on, and what if we went to this crappy restaurant?
yes. And what if I told him I didn't care about the Knicks game even though I secretly do because aren't the worst girls like that? And so they do this weird thing. But then on the opposite side of that, you have Matthew McConaughey running his own game. He's running his own racket. Just has to stay with her as long to win this bet.
Well, he looks through her purse to get intel, that's a red flag.
Yes, and he finds the Knicks tickets, and
Right.
which though, that's why I was telling you earlier that How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days would be drastically different in 2020 or 2021 as long as they followed each other on Instagram. He wouldn't have to look through her purse. She
Mm.
she would embarrass him on Instagram. That would be a real touchy subject, right? She like starts tagging you in mad pictures and like saying hashtag baby, hashtag my love, love of my life. Right? You could rewrite the whole thing for
Oh
obnoxious
my god.
digital things. Um,
Oh my god. Don't we can't let this podcast get out because somebody will steal this and write a screenplay about it.
but anyway, so they would stalking is removed. That was such a part of rom-coms, right?
Yeah.
Stalking each other to get intel. You don't need that at all. You literally just use Google and you're like, "Oh, I know everything about this."
Well, especially if you're a person like, if you do what we do, like, somebody that we're talking to could go on our Instagram and be like, "Oh, this person's a clown." Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And also too, um, then there's yes, yeah, you can be like, "Oh, I," you could see the where they've tagged in or pictures they've been tagged and you can see their friends. There's a whole you could just get the
But you're
whole
totally right. She would go crazy. She would go bananas and tag him and everything, and he would just be a regular guy's guy, you know what I mean? He'd probably even, like, post on an Instagram story, maybe, like, another girl he's hanging out with to try to make her jealous or something like that.
yes, and also I thought the most like it's so funny because essentially she's telling you what not to do in a relationship, which is why I thought the vegetarian thing was weird because I was like, all right, well, whatever. You could date a vegetarian if y'all in love. I don't care. Who
Yeah.
cares if someone doesn't eat meat? But I think you nailed it when you were like, it's about the infant, the baby voice, the baby. So she does that whole thing. She has the stuffed animals. She does the real baby angle. She calls it Princess Sophia. She talks in baby talk, which is obnoxious as shit. And
Hate it.
she doesn't give him time for his boys. She infringes on poker night, which is a big no. Don't you
Yep.
dare. And that goes for both genders. Everybody gotta have their friends. Let
You
your
gotta have your own space,
yeah,
absolutely.
let your boo hang out. And but the ending is weird because so they both find out, right? The jig is up. They both find out that the
And then
other
they ruin their event for their job, which is, "You're fired." I mean,
yeah,
come on.
she quits. He doesn't get, he doesn't get his account. And then she's gonna go to DC because the whole time she secretly wanted to be a writer, right? She secretly wanted to be doing actual journalism instead of these fluff pieces. And
Mhm.
he intercepts the cab and convinces her to stay. And they do not acknowledge at all that they've only been together for 10 days. So, like, you don't need to stop traffic. You could just call.
Yeah, he drives that motorcycle and he's running through the yeah, exactly.
Like, at the end of the day, I think now the reason that rom-coms don't really work is I think now we understand that, like, falling in love in a weekend is probably not a good idea because a lot
Yeah,
of the
absolutely.
like a lot of the rom-coms is like the girls were going out on the town and so were the guys and that's about these people bumping into each other over the span of a night or a weekend or a week at max and then by the end of it they're in love and I think like millennials are too aware. We're like, nah, son, like I want to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, oh, yeah, like, I'd probably have to date someone for, like, 2 years before I even thought about being engaged to them.
Yes, and the thing we were talking about earlier which we need to bring up is the McConaughey Staten Island accent.
I was wanting to talk about this. Absolutely. Okay. So this is a really big scene in the movie because she's getting on the ferry. They're gonna meet his parents, and he is McConaughey. I'm looking at a poster of him in my room right now from We Are Marshall. Not even kidding. And so,
I love
so
it.
he's like, yo, Andy, we're going to go to my parents' place. It's gonna be a cool time. We're gonna play this card game no one understands. All right. And then they get there, and then the family likes her because she's jabbing. You know what I mean? She's jabbing, and he wins the card game because he's the best and he's McConaughey and it's the masculine. He has to win everything. But isn't there that scene where they play that like "Kiss Me" song or whatever, and they're making out in the bathroom? Is that there?
Yes. So they
Okay.
get hit with a whole puddle of like they go for a ride on the boardwalk in Staten Island, and like so it's the part of the movie where they're like, are we maybe really in love? Like
This is mind you, this is like day 5.
yes, yes, and it's like so this they both are
Mind you, she's going from being a literal crazy person to meeting your parents in 3 days.
yes, right, and like fitting right in. Even though she bought you a Chinese crested dog, y'all just met, you're dressing the same, she got stuffed animals, the whole shebang, right?
You had to go see Celine Dion instead of the Knicks. Remember that?
Yes, and then yeah, and but what's weird
Oh, she was being a jerk at the Knicks game.
yes, she was being a jerk at the Knicks game, and then also, like, um, I don't know that, like, the first time we really hook up, I wanted to be at my parents' house. Like
Yeah, like, they're trying to make it, like, so, like, intimate, and they're playing the music, and it's slow, like, it's not like a quick 1, 2, skip to my loo, like, hookup, like, it's
no,
slow, sensual, essentially a lovemaking session in your parents' bathroom?
yeah, nah, I'm a pass.
No.
Yeah, but, I mean and then, but McConaughey as a Staten Islander is hilarious because his accent I is which is, the Texan comes out
Do they explain that origin story at all? Do they say his parents moved there, like, or, like, what's the deal there?
The weirdest part is if you move to New York, you would definitely Staten Island's like a place you're from. It's not a place you move to. So even if they
Really?
did have an origin story, Staten Island is like a very like people who live on Staten Island, they are from Staten Island. I don't know if you know
Okay.
is like that or towns like that, where it's like you don't really get people moving in and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna stay in Staten Island." Now they're developing it more. So like because New York is running out of space, so people are going
Right.
to places like Brooklyn or Queens or Long Island, Staten Island. But yeah, at the time it would be very odd for them to be from somewhere else and be like, "We're gonna settle down in Staten Island." But I mean, they did. I believe it. I like McConaughey, so I believe he's from Staten Island.
Yeah, again, I'm literally typing stuff into Google as I do this to try to figure out, like, what the story is on that or whatever, but all we know is, because like, who like, he lives in New York, and now he's this big Knicks fan, and, like, he's a city guy, and everybody knows him in the city, but it's like, I what was his origin story? He just worked for that agency selling, like, diamonds or something like that, where you "Go
He
frost yourself."
had
That was the
yeah,
big saying.
it was, he worked for in advertising, and they had land
Advertising for, like, diamonds, and he's like, "Go frost yourself."
yes, and what's funny is, what I was just thinking about? Imagine you roll up to your parents' crib and you got the new boo. And they're like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna play cards together. Well, cool. So, tell me, how long have you guys been together?" And it's like, since Thursday."
Oh my gosh. I've watched that movie at least, like, I don't know, 10 times or whatever. I just can't get enough of it, and, again, I'm a sucker for McConaughey movies. I don't know. Is that would you say that's your favorite McConaughey movie?
Oh,
Or
I really like Dazed and Confused.
okay, see, I haven't gotten into that.
Yeah, I really like Dazed and Confused, and I like it when he's playing a Texan just because Texans are so hilarious and wonderful. I know, like, we have associations with like certain presidents being from Texas, but like when you meet a regular Texan, they can be some of the most fun. Texas culture is hilarious.
Yeah, truly.
It's like its whole country almost. Like people used they jokingly say in Texas that they're gonna secede, and it's like Texans are big and some of our greatest actors are Texans. Look at Tommy Lee Jones, a Texan. McConaughey's a Texan. A lot of the greats, male actors, I feel like, are Texans. So
Yeah.
I like him in a lot of stuff. I
It's Interstellar. I love Interstellar.
yeah, and I also love that he can do rom-coms and that he'll be like in a big action movie. He could do it all. That he'll be in like a Dallas Buyers Club. He's very versatile.
Yeah, funny. I mean, I know a ton of stuff about the guy's life because whenever I'm really fixated on something or somebody I like, I have to know like everything about them. It's kind of weird. I don't know if that's a stalker thing, but so like he was doing all those rom coms and everything, but he was wanting to make a switch into making more serious movies, and he took a couple years off, and uh, and they offered him like 6 times in a row. They offered him each time with more money. They want you to do this rom com, rom com, rom com. And he's like, no, I'm done. And finally, like I think he started getting those roles where he was doing more serious stuff. And I'm gonna look up what the first role was. It might have been in that movie Bernie. But he started doing these more, I don't know, serious things to try to change his image. And then, 2 years after that, he takes 2 years off, and then 2 years after he wins the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah, and I love that level of commitment to like, nah, I want. And we were talking about that, like reevaluating what you're doing artistically, and be like, nah, I don't want to. He could have made so much money being in Brown. He's still, and he's held up. Like, meaning he looks about as handsome as he did. How?
I actually just bought his book recently. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, he is not one of those rom com stars who like lost his hair or looks different. He's like kept fit. So
Okay, so, not to interrupt, but 2009, he did Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, which was, not that great, but I've watched it 1,000 times. And then, 2 years later, he comes out with Lincoln Lawyer, Killer Joe, Bernie, The Paperboy, Mud, he was in Magic Mike, and then 2013, Dallas Buyers Club, and 2014, True Detective and Interstellar. So he was on, like, an absolute tear there for, like, 5 years after
oh
he did
yeah,
the
and
rom-coms.
he's so good in Magic Mike as the like semi villain, and it's such a
He's a villain in that movie?
he is like the manipulator. He's the gaslighter. He's the one that like if
Wow.
they're like, "We're not making enough money." He's like, "Nah, y'all are making enough money. What are you talking about?" And it's he's taking the money, but um he's really good in Magic Mike. Like so much so that like I think the average woman was like, "I loved Magic Mike because of the bodies." And I was like, "Yo, but Matthew McConaughey is a villain because I'm a nerd." I was like,
I've definitely seen it. I've definitely seen Magic Mike strictly for McConaughey, but I don't
he's
remember
not in
him.
it that much. He should be in it more. Like, it should be
Yeah.
less about the stripping and more about this, like, manipulative stripper, which is hilarious, you know? Like, more of a
Manipulative
role they
stripper.
more of
Yeah.
a role they give women, and they gave it to McConaughey, and he kills it.
Oh, man. Alright. Enough about McConaughey. We can talk about him forever. We do have to get to the second movie because I'm sure we'll talk about this for the remainder. But, so the other movie we wanted to talk about today and how we'd this one, I think more so than the other one, would not get made today because of, what dating and what, standard issue culture is like now, and Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, who is a literal angel. She descended from heaven to make this movie. I love Julia Roberts.
When I tell you that she is just so incredibly beautiful, like, in this movie,
Gorgeous.
like, it's so crazy because nobody has ever looked like her before or after. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's just like sometimes you have this, uh, female or, like, just movie star that, like, just breaks the mold. You know what I mean? Like,
It's a good point.
so many people tried to be her. They try to have the nice toothy smile, and they were like, "Nah, only Julia can do this shit."
Well, she had this like auburn hair. You don't ever see that.
No, no, and it's funny because it's like, it's not a you can tell it's not, like, it's natural. The look her whole look, top to bottom, she doesn't have to change her hair color. She didn't have, like, any crazy augmentation on her body done. She comes across as just a beautiful, like you said, she fell from heaven, this little sweet baby angel.
Literally descended from heaven. I mean, this is I'm looking up photos now, so I just get that visual image in my mind. This is top 5 most gorgeous women in history. I mean,
Yeah,
my
she was
god.
definitely, like, at the time, like, that was considered the most beautiful woman in the world when she was in
Did she win those, remember those magazines? It's like World's Sexiest Man. Like, did she win that
She
for
won
women?
yeah, she won, like, Sexiest Woman. I think she was the first that people did if they ever did the, gender one. It used to be Sexiest Man and Sexiest Woman, and I think she was one of the first. Like, she was a big old deal. But, I mean, the movie works mostly the movie is flawed, but it works so well because of the chemistry between them and how in the chemistry she has with the camera and the audience. You want her
Yeah.
to win so much, like, you want her to do well. She's charming, she's funny, she has good timing. So,
That
frankly, I
movie,
wish she
here's a
was more
take
famous.
here's a take for you. That movie is the PG American Psycho.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. See, so unpack that, and I'm gonna tell you what I think my version of that is. Okay, go ahead.
Richard Gere,
Uh-huh.
crazy successful businessman, much like Patrick Bateman. We don't really know what he does. Bateman mergers and acquisitions. This guy just buys things. They always talk about in that movie because in that movie he's having this struggle with his job. He's like, yeah, but we don't make anything. We just buy things." Bateman doesn't really do anything. He just is there. Okay. Again, stupid amounts of money. Very handsome men. They always dress to the nines. Always. They're very serious and they're very slow and methodical in their demeanor. They know what they're doing at every single moment of like any word that comes out of their mouth is thought of to the 10th degree. They know where they're going with it. And the only difference between Richard Gere and Patrick Bateman is that Patrick Bateman will murder these prostitutes and Richard Gere falls in love with them.
I love this. This you just you won me over. I like you. I'm giving this essay an A plus. This is
Yes.
hilarious. That
Yes.
was I do agree there is a sociopathy, right? Like a detachment from real emotion. The whole thing is
He's
that
just
Richard
he's
Gere
con
can't be in love.
Gear is controlling her every move, buying her clothes, making her, like, stay up in this penthouse, like, giving her, oh my gosh, I
But
mean, it
also like the whole setup, you're right, is like she keeps bumping into women who are like, he doesn't emote, he doesn't know how to love. Like he's just a oh, he works hard. That's it. He only makes money, right? This
yeah,
is
no one knows what Bateman does, and it's like he's just there.
I like this. So my theory is Pretty Woman was a script that already existed about a man and a prostitute, and then Disney bought it. So it is the closest we'll ever get to a Disney princess movie, but live action because it
Wow.
has the same arc, which is like it's almost like the Aladdin arc in a way, and which is funny because I've never considered that Jasmine is not she's an actual princess, but in many ways Aladdin has the a random thought, but he goes from, like, rags to riches, which is usually what happens to the princesses, right? Like Cinderella. So
Yeah.
it's just a live action Cinderella with and I am going to preface it for to cover us both because I think I know Franklin, he good people and he would never. No disrespect to sex workers. You have to acknowledge that now you wouldn't call a sex worker a prostitute or like a hooker, and they do all the time in the movie. Do you get what I
Wait,
mean?
I'm not allo wait, that's a bad word?
Well, no, you would, but what I'm saying is we now understand we have a completely different understanding of sex work in 2021 than
Oh,
we
I'm supposed to okay, I'm not supposed to say prostitute, I'm supposed to say sex worker.
yes, but, like,
Okay,
back
that's on
in
me.
the day so back in the day, like, when Pretty
I'm
Woman
reading it says she's a free-spirited Hollywood prostitute. That's what I read, I
that's what I
apologize.
mean. No, no, but that's what I'm saying, it's just, like, I don't think they would make Pretty Woman now because I think they'd have to approach her prostitution from a completely different angle. Do you get what I
No,
mean? Like
Pretty Woman now, they would dumb it down so much. It would be some rich YouTube guy and an OnlyFans girl. That's it.
oh my god, two for two, Franklin. They're gonna listen to this podcast and they're gonna make both those movies.
It's a rich YouTube guy and an OnlyFans girl. It's not maybe not even YouTube guy. Maybe it's just Elon Musk and an OnlyFans girl. That's it.
Yeah, well, okay. But see, what's funny yes, but that oh my god, no, now I'm laughing because this is so but so the one thing so that aside, so like my limited knowledge of what, I just mean this as like I would never want to offend someone who was a sex worker. So I'm going to talk about Pretty Woman from the perspective as an 80s 90s baby and from that time and also as just from the context of the movie. The thing I thought was weird about watching it again now, this was a hugely popular movie. Everyone loved Julia Roberts. She was America's sweetheart, which is why she
Yep.
was in the movie America's Sweetheart, because that was the gag, right? Uh, she was America's sweetheart. Everybody wanted her to be in every movie ever, like that she won the Oscar for Evan Brockovich. She was just this very well respected actress who started out in
Yep.
rom-coms. And this rom-com is bananas in its concept. The concept is this incredibly rich man who barely knows how to drive a car because that's how rich he is, right? So he gets into a car, he gets lost in the strip, right, in LA, and he asks for directions from a prostitute who is the stunningly beautiful Julia Roberts. And no shade to streetwalkers of that era, but there's no way you picking up you get what I mean, Franklin?
I
On.
know what you're saying without saying it. There's no
Yeah,
way.
there's no way she gonna be as cute as a button, right? So she hops in the hoopty, and she knows about cars, right? That's the first thing she flexes. Also, stunningly beautiful outfit. I'm in the minority here in that the whole gag with Pretty Woman is that he gives her money and she gets better dressed. I thought she was better dressed as a hooker because that outfit.
I'm in the same I watched that movie last week on Lifetime by myself, uh, and I saw her outfit, I was like, "This look at this drip, she's
Yes, that's
flashy," and then
that's
she goes into, like, Gucci and Chanel, and they're like, "We don't have anything for you." It's like, "What?"
yes. She's stunningly beautiful throughout, but she gets into the car and he is like, "What?" They don't really explain, which is funny because this lends so much to your American Psycho angle. They don't explain that he's, like, I guess, bored, right, with being rich? Like, he's looking to
He's
kind of
playing a game with human lives, with women. He's Patrick Bateman. They have a
right?
no kissing rule during sex. That's Patrick Bateman saying,
But
"We're
that's
not through yet," and grabbing a hanger. That's it.
yes. So, and the one thing that, like, so she gets in the car and then he takes her for the night. And at first, he's just like, you're right. He's just like fucking around with her. Like, he's just like, how hilarious. I bought this hooker here. She's so blown away. I'm so rich. And then, right? Then she's like, hey, you want to like do something? And at first, he's like, nah, like, let's just talk. Right. And
Yeah.
then they're talking, and then, they hook up, but it's established, as Franklin said, that they do not kiss on the mouth because that's the rule that her homegirl Kit taught her. It's that
There's no kissing.
there's no kissing allowed. Um, Jason Alexander plays the villain, which is interesting.
And we can get to that later because he does a not good thing at the end.
Yes, yes. So then she starts to then you do your classic once again Disney princess angle. She gets money, she starts dressing up, she starts to feel more secure in herself. He romances her, right? They have these
Yeah, the
romantic.
hotel staff falls in love with her like the toy or like the animals did in Snow White or something, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Everything around her starts to realign. Yeah, very Snow White, right? Like she has helpers like the dwarves and also the mice and Cinderella. So she has these helpers. They give her what is considered better drip, but as Franklin and I said, is not at all.
No,
She was good
she's
looking to begin with.
swag turned to the max.
Yes. So then the problem becomes, and this is a very common issue that they could have done well, but it's just an interesting trope, and I think that's what made the movie relatable to people, is even though she is a prostitute, his coworker said like he Richard Gere fucks up and is like, "Oh yeah, she's a call girl. That's why you don't know her.
Well,
She
I was having a hard time understanding that part of the movie last time I watched it because it was like he almost like snapped. He's like, "Yeah, she's a hooker," but like he's falling for her. But then he says that he's like,
yes,
"She's a hooker." You know what I mean?
yes, and then so what ends up happening is Jason Alexander's character uses that, like, he puts the fear in him that he's like, "Oh, well, how do you know she's not just, like, screwing everybody?" Which is a weird thing because he found her the way they met is so crazy, like, there's no way, and he assures he tells Jason Alexander, Richard Gere is like, "Nah, there's no way people know her." Like, but it still implants in him this weird, like, toxic feeling that, like, she's a hooker and, like, less valuable, which is,
Yeah.
um never really resolved. He just finally admits that he's in love with her, right? So towards the end,
Hmm.
the big move, and this is the one thing that I found like incredulously unbelievable. We're supposed to believe that she struggled so much, right? And that she deserves more, which is a common thread in these like fairy tales, right? And then she is so insulted by him because he told everyone that uh she was a hooker, or not everyone, his homeboy, and what that resulted in is the homeboy tried to attack her. He assaults her. Uh,
Right.
she leaves the money. Remember at the like right in the not at the end, but she's just like he's like here. She's like that's it. I'm fucking leaving. And then
Yeah.
like here's your money.
She kept the clothes, mind you.
Yes, and she boats. And I was like, nah. Like if I'm supposed to believe that she struggled that hard, I kind of wish they'd shown it in another way where she let him know. Because not taking the money is then like I don't know. She worked for that. She earned that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
I thought it was a really weird choice. But yes, so they show her and they go through great lengths to establish that Viv, Julia Roberts' character, doesn't have a pimp, right? Like she's her own woman. She's an independent woman, independent prostitute. Um, so they do those things I think will get
Which is bananas to me. I didn't even know that exists. She's like, for the fellas out there, you know Notre Dame in college football, they're not in a conference. That's her. Okay.
she's not in a conference. She works at her she can get traded wherever she pleases. So yes,
Exactly.
at the end, um, they make each other better. He, of course, gives her she can stop hooking, and also he loves her. And then for him, he was you just pointed out, he was a sociopath, and she makes him human. She makes him approachable to people.
Yeah. But, like, as in their, time being spent together where they're reading that book in San Francisco in the park, and it's all cute and stuff like that, and he puts off going to the meetings, and she can't eat snails because I guess she just never learned how, and she what's the thing? She wants to do something, right? Isn't there a thing where she, like, says she can be something or be somebody
Yes.
and do something?
So here's where they muck up their message, because you gotta choose one or the other, right? So,
Okay.
like, if she leaves the pile of money, which is showing him that there is no price on her actual love. There's no price. He couldn't buy the time she spent real time with him, right? It would cheapen their experiences together.
Mhm.
She then gives a monologue where she says that when she was a little girl, she always dreamt of being rescued by a knight in shining armor, and she is going to take
Ah.
nothing less than that. So this encourages him to buy her the $250,000 necklace, which was a big thing in it. So they do this weird thing where I feel like the necklace, that's the part where she wears that ruby necklace, is an
And he
analogy.
puts it on her hand, and she's like,
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the like apparently they did that scene between takes, and they kept it in because he scared her for real. Like he made her laugh for real. Uh
Yeah.
which is really sweet because it's a very endearing classic moment in the movie. But
Everybody knows that scene.
because that's what we love about Julia, like that's what people love, is that toothy smile. But yeah, so she tells him like, "I'm above your money," but then he rolls up to the crib with the fucking necklace, and she's like, "I guess I'm not that above your money," and they go off that. So it's like, in that respect, the movie makes no sense, like watching it now, I was like, well, that's illogical. Because it's like she goes through great pains to establish that she's independent and she's only going to take life on her terms. And then he comes by and he conquers his fear of heights, which is a very
Yep, that's the thing, the fear of it. Mind you, the clothes she's wearing in that scene are also, incredible, and it's like, you so I think she's talking to her homegirl, and she's like, "Imma take my GED when I get home." I think that's what she said, right?
Yes, she's like, "I'm going back home. Imma do right by my," because well, first of all, she's stunningly beautiful. She's got, and I don't mean to objectify, she's, like, funny, got a smoking hot bod. So, like, he keeps telling her, right? Like, they make him seem like such a hero for being like, "Viv, I believe you can be more." Like, of course you can be more than a prostitute. What are you doing, crazy lady? Like, and it's not necessarily it's bad, but they make it seem like she's in this very dire situation. Her roommate's on drugs, right? Kid's on
Yeah.
coke. They don't have any money. They can't pay rent. So then she gets with him, and they're off into the sunset. And there's a weird thing. They have a homeless, they have like a vagrant, like a guy from the strip, walk by at the end of the
He's
movie.
like, "That's LA, baby."
Yeah, where dreams come true. And it's like, as much as I love Richard Gere, Julia Roberts, and Pretty Woman, were we really selling this story to teenage girls? It's just like, go to LA.
You too can be a toot on the street and find love.
Yes, and then marry a really rich guy and have every single one of your beautiful teeth. Like, there's no way, like, and that's the thing that, like, I think that, like, watching it now, I mean, is it do I get why it works? Absolutely. There's not a single scene in it. Take note, people who make movies now. I feel like movies are a little too long. There is not a single scene in Pretty Woman that doesn't push the narrative forward or isn't funny or entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, it's a zippy, beautiful rom.
That's a really good point. That's a really
Yeah.
good point. And you have, obviously a better film knowledge than I do, so you can look at it through that lens, and that's really interesting. Now looking back on it, it's like, that totally makes sense. You know what I mean?
It's also, like, for the time, very sexually forward. Like, there's a whole scene where Viv, doesn't have underwear on and says as
Is that
much.
the bathtub scene?
No, it's right before, like, when they're going up to his room, and she's got the trench coat and the blonde wig, and, like, a old lady is waiting in the fancy hotel and gives her a dirty look, and, Viv, says something about not wearing panties, and then sits down and spreads her legs, and it's a PG-13, so it's like they don't show the top of her, they only show the top of her, um, and then the woman gasps and doesn't get on the elevator, and then later, my favorite line in the movie as an adult woman was, there's a scene where, because Richard Gere is like, uh a ladies' man and a sociopath and a serial killer, as Franklin established.
He's Patrick Bateman.
He's Patrick Bateman. One of the girls is like, she bumps into these women at the polo uh, game. That's polo. Yeah, they'll do. It's a polo game. Is it that they're at
Polo match.
polo match? And the woman goes, "Oh, so I guess you're his new woman." And Julia Roberts, without missing a beat, looks at him and says, "Yeah, I'm just using him for the sex," which is hilarious. Like,
That's really good. That's really quick. I didn't even think about that.
and in the
That's
90s,
funny.
yeah, like, that's funny, and, like, at the time, they women really didn't say shit like that, so I think that's why people love the movie because she's this girl that eats with her hands. She's really stunningly beautiful, but she's also, like, she's tough, and there's,
Yeah.
like, even her friend, Kit, there's a scene where, like, an old lady's staring at her, and she's like, "For $50, hey, old man, for $50, we can have a go. For 75, I'll let your wife watch." That's crazy in a gay movie, but yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I think they couldn't make it now because it's punching down in many ways, Like, "Oh, man, sucks to be a sex worker. You better find a rich guy to fix your life," Like, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually didn't think about that think about it in that sense. That actually make it a lot tough because you're not allowed to talk bad about any profession whatsoever, and I understand, and that's the modern game. But yeah, I highly doubt they'd make that.
Yeah, and I mean, but do I think it's a classic film? And also it's a classic theme. Like recently I had to watch Breakfast at Tiffany's because I'd never seen it. And like Breakfast at Tiffany's is a very similar story. Holly Golightly, Audrey Hepburn plays a at the time, it's the 60s. So like an escort is all they'll call her. But
Yeah.
she's an
And
escort.
every college girl that was kind of cute I knew of, maybe they were in a sorority, they had that Breakfast at Tiffany's like poster, or maybe they dressed up as her for like Halloween one year.
Yes, because it's absolutely proto Sex in the City. It's like it's about a country girl, right? Or it's about a woman who moves to the city. Uh, Breakfast at Tiffany's. To me, the most notable thing is Givenchy does the costuming. So like the drip is disgusting. Like it's highly illogical that this escort would be wearing the opening scene is her eating a croissant outside of the Tiffany's window in a full gown. Like it's just like
Yeah.
she lives in this super, and that's why I think even girls who haven't seen the movie, they love it because they see that image. It's like a classic image, like of Audrey Hepburn. She was like so stylish.
It's the perfect mix of like elegance, but also like I'm not here to mess around, like I'm cool too. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. She like the big thing is not just the dress, it's the cigarette holder, like a woman smoking. Like,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It's the balance of the two things.
Yes. And so yeah, and that is a trope. Sweet Charity. I've never seen that, but I believe Sweet Charity is a similar storyline. They did that a lot, where a rich guy meets a poor girl and then he makes her into this acceptable societal woman and she changes him for the better.
But now I'm curious for like you as far as like dating goes. You being this cinephile person, does it make like in all these rom-coms you've watched, has there ever been a situation where you were like wanted to have a relationship that was similar to one of these rom-coms, or do you think they're all terrible relationships?
So as much as earlier I said that like you couldn't fall in love in a short amount of time, the crazy thing about like when you get on with someone, like when you get along with someone makes you laugh, is that perfect mixture of like love hanging out together, you're attracted to one another. There is nothing in the world better than that. You know what I mean? So you believe that there's these crazy people drive to Vegas to get married. Was it a good idea? No, we're not saying that. But do we understand?
Shotgun wedding, yeah.
Yeah, do we understand in the moment where they were? Yes, because I think if we were lucky enough, you're all afforded that like crazy and when I say crazy, I don't mean like mental illness. I mean like just like woo loopy, like yeah, Looney Tunes, yeah, we're in love. Oh my god, this is crazy. Um I do think that as you mentioned earlier, there is a danger of in movies when they pass off toxic behavior as romantic. I was once in a relationship where it took me a minute to realize that the person was overstepping their boundaries of control because the whole
Uh-huh.
time I just thought he was just being extremely romantic because that's what the movies taught me, right? Like when a person wants to hang out with you every single day, isn't that romantic? They can only think of you. You take their breath away. No, that's so unhealthy. You know what I feel like I love a good romance. It was funny that we were talking about, I just recently watched Ghost. You watched Top Gun. I love all those movies that have those scenes where like the two people finally hook up. That's the greatest. Those are the best. When they do it well, they play a good song and then they
Oh, take my breath away.
exactly, right? So I get it, but also I just think and that's why maybe that was what ended the rom-com is like we got to stop showing certain behaviors that are definitely inappropriate as like
Yeah.
fun and or cute or quirky. Like you had shit where like pre-internet where you can find out more about people like me lying or looking through your shit in your room or sneaking no none of that is good please don't like, so there's that but yeah I've always the one thing that rom-coms have sold me on is I'm very much a person who loves to create experiences. So like even if I am on pretty good terms with almost everybody I've dated like with the exception of like one person who was super toxic but like so I
Yeah.
always love that I can still talk to them like we'll still be friends or we'll still catch up and then they'll be like oh man remember that one time we went to that dive bar and we played pool all night and we gambled against these guys and then we lost but then we laughed and we had hot dogs after like I think rom-coms tainted my view of the world and that I always wanna have these awesome nights, like,
Oh, I fall victim to that too, yeah.
where it's like, "Oh, we're having fun? Shit, let's get in the car and drive to another place and have fun. You wanna do this thing?" Like, I know it's a movie very much about and I think actually it's a good movie to bring up, Eternal Sunshine. One of the things I love about Eternal Sunshine is that it's
That's the
about
Jim Carrey one, right?
yes, it's about the good and bad of relationships.
Okay.
It's like, they're remembering both at the same time because it's about the deletion of memories in the narrative. So it's like for every one great memory they have, they also have like another one that wasn't so great, but it's a more realistic painting of what of course you have those favorite restaurants or like, those wonderful nights where like, especially in New York, you know, you're living the rom-com in the place where they shoot most rom-coms. So it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
I've had that night where I've gone dancing, at a club until the sun came up and then walked home with, like, my homegirls or, like, the person I was seeing and then, like, cracked up while we were on the train, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, this is the thing." So it's like, that's the one thing that I hope stay persists about the rom-com, where it,
Yeah.
like, shows how awesome having fun and especially now in the pandemic, like, you miss those things you see in, like, rom-coms, like, just being at a bar or like going for a walk or seeing something beautiful and like that's always very dope. Um
Yeah, and I'm an elite dater, like, I love going on dates. Again, I love experiencing things. I can't tell you how many, like, times uh, anytime I've dated a girl, like, I'd come up with this list in my mind of, like, where I'm at located geographically, and it's like, "Okay, what can I do this day or this day or this day?" And it's like, I like to have experiences and share moments with people. That's a big thing for me.
yes. And I think that's like and also the best is and that's the only thing I think that like sometimes some romantic comedies do a little too much like with like capitalism. Like I hate when the romantic comedies also tie in. You can tell that they're like trying to get you to buy like they almost a lot of Sex in the City did this. It's like he'll only love you if he buys you Manolo Blahniks or that really expensive bag or oh my god, isn't that so romantic? He bought you this thing. Please let's step away from shit like that. Like, remember when the whole Tiffany's thing was the thing? Like the all girls
You had
wanted
to get the aqua box or whatever,
the
and the
aqua
Tiffany
box.
blue.
Yeah, so I do think that like sometimes rom-coms do that too much, but no, I absolutely love in any rom-com where they have a really dope date and like I think that would be if I wrote a rom-com, my favorite scene would be the meet cute. Like how fun is that to write, Like what
My favorite scene would be the montage. It'd be, like, day 3, 4, and 5, and they're like, great music's playing, and they're doing a bunch of stuff.
Oh, see, but I know. So there you go. That's what I love about like rom-coms and date culture. Like they do go hand in hand. Also, I think a lot of those 90s rom-coms showed you that it is more experiential. It's not just about a fancy restaurant. It's also about some crazy shit you did. Like, like there's people who I mean, I've never have and I don't know that I would now, but it's like, there's people go like skydiving like it's just like they want to
Yeah,
do something,
yeah, yeah.
and that's cool, but yeah, I think no, perfect example. So you're gonna do the montage into it. I like it.
Yeah. well, like, I'm trying to think of, like, maybe, like, a craziest, like, first date I've been on. I'm so tame and mild-mannered when it comes to the first date because, like, maybe I am Richard Gere and maybe I am, like, a weirdo because, like, I might pay for a prostitute, but just talk to them all night and, like, get to know everything about them. Maybe jeez.
But that's also, I don't know if you remember in Catcher in the Rye, Holden also does that. Like he like tries to like he gets in enmeshed with a prostitute briefly in the book and like screws it up because he gets like he just starts talking. You know what I mean? And the girl's like, "Hey, what is it, bub?" You know, it's not like but no, I think talking's
I'm a
super
big
important.
softy. I'm a big softy. I got a big heart, so it's like I like talking to people.
Talking is very important, and if I could recommend a romantic movie, it's very old. It's called The Apartment with Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon, and it has some of the best talking in a rom com ever. I love I love romantic comedies when they go back and forth, not bickering, but you know when they both give each other zings. I think nothing is cooler than when you have good joke chemistry on a date, and I think
Mhm.
a lot of dates, and I know that's hard. Like not everybody is that type of quick funny, but I do think it's a great indicator. Have you ever made a joke on a date and then they didn't laugh at all and you're like reevaluating whether or not you're going to get along?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like we'll be sitting and watching TV or something like that, and somebody will make a like. I'll watch a local commercial, and I'll say something bananas like, "Why would they say that when they should have said this? Wouldn't you think that's funnier?" And then they're like, "No, I don't care about the local heating and cooling commercial." And then I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm dead."
Yes, and I think also too, just to get a good like, that's the cool thing about a rom-com is that they're written by clever people. So 90% of the conversations they have in rom-coms are like super uber clever, you know, like, and that's
So
a
by back and forth, you don't mean by back and forth, you mean like being able to like carry each other's like yes and like be able to joke with each
yes.
other, or what do you
And
mean?
also like, okay, so this has happened multiple times. Conversation should flow naturally. But I have absolutely been on a date where I've asked somebody a question, they've answered it, and then they are not they I'm playing tennis with myself. You know what I mean? Like the ball's not
Oh yeah.
and then I am always like, "All right, cool. Then maybe I should talk less." But they're like, "No, go on." And it's just like they don't ask you about yourself or they don't gear the conversation anywhere interesting. I think what I love in the rom-coms is they almost always know exactly what to say because it's written. It's a script,
That's true. That's very
But
true.
but I do love when you find that kind of synergy with someone. You know, like
Yeah.
you can talk to someone online and even in DMs and fucking slay. Absolutely make each other crack up. You know, it's like
Yep.
it's about chemistry. I do think though the one thing that was interesting about and it relates still to your bit about Instagram is when I was doing online dating, which was a while ago, before I did comedy even, it was always so strange to me. People, the number one thing I got when I walked into whatever bar, venue, place was the guys would always go, "Oh my god, you look just like your pictures," and it's because I would only put realistic pictures of myself.
Me
Because
too. I hate the fake photos. I
yes,
don't get it.
I hate the fake photos, and I have to tell you, man. Maybe the new rom-com will be about someone putting up a super fake photo. I don't know, but like people put up some crazy shit that is not their life. Don't do that. That is a bad way to start a.
One of my worst dates I've ever been on was in downtown Philly, and this girl looked incredible on the photos. Back when I was doing the online dating, and I showed up to her, her dwelling, her place, and she looked nothing like and I immediately thought of a way to get out of there. How do I get out of here?
Yes, and that's not your fault. You're not supposed to do that. You can't, like I don't know. But yes, so that's just a that was a thing that I noticed. And even like you could have like uh you message each other like when you do online dating. And then
Yeah.
it sound great. And then you meet them and you never even know. It gets crazy. Sometimes they have a crazy voice. Imagine
Oh, or a bad laugh. Hate a bad laugh.
or just a weird like a monotone. There's so many factors at play. So anything, the one thing I will say is like be honestly, unabashedly you from the start, right?
Yeah. Well,
And
the thing is, it's like again, I love talking to them so much, and you were talking about being able to go back and forth. Ladies, listen, it is so easy, and this is not just for me. This is for any guy like me. It is so easy if he's talking to you and he's asking you questions about you. It's so easy for you to follow that up with da 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 and you. and ask him about him, and then he thinks, "Oh my god, this girl can play ball. She knows how to talk to people." And then you're good.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely ask the same question back, and or also, this is the reason y'all have to talk on the first couple days is because you can find out very quickly whether or not this person is a huge giant red flag, right? Like you can
Is a literal psycho, you know?
so like if it's not jiving on the talking side. But yeah, so that's like to me it's just I love my favorite things about the rom-coms is the meet cute, the talking, you know. So that's what I always try to find and the one thing
The
I
meat cute? You keep saying that. What is that?
meet cute is like the weird way that they bump into each other. That's what they call that scene.
Oh, see,
Like
here you go with this film logic. The
that's
meat
how they
cute. I like that.
cute. Yes, that's so for them it would be at the bar, right? The for how to lose a guy in 10 days. It's them at the bar. He goes up, she has to find a guy. He has to find a woman. But he's instigated by the advertising exec. And the meet cute in Pretty Woman is she climbs into the car to give him directions. So
Okay, I got a meat cute for you. I got a meat cute for you. Okay. Guy at a bar, girl bartending. He's not. They're not really paying attention to each other. He is a regular though. He does to come there often, but they're not on a good term where they can like just joke around with each other. He gets accidentally like punched in the face from a fight that he has no part of. Like somebody accidentally hits him. He gets knocked out. She puts ice on his face to like I don't know, like help his swelling on his eye. And then that's their. Is that a meet cute?
that boom, that's a meet cute.
Wow, I could write these rom-coms.
Absolutely right, these rom-coms. He didn't even throw a punch. He just got accidentally knocked out by a chair or bottle. I love this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I maybe she accidentally knocks him out trying to break up the fight. Even meet cuter.
That is meet cuter. This is oh my gosh, we should yo, next time you're on, we will just literally let's like try to create a rom-com.
We're gonna write the rom-com.
Maybe
Uh,
not even necessarily that, but like we could storyboard a good rom-com.
we're gonna have an elevator pitch, Franklin. Then we just like Julia Roberts and like Vivian did in Pretty Woman.
Oh my gosh, I'm so pumped, and it's gonna be the YouTube guy and the OnlyFans girl, and it's gonna be great.
Yes, yes. I love this. Oh my god, thank you for having me, by the way.
Of course, I could talk to you for hours, but is there anything you'd like to leave the people with?
What I would like to leave the people with, is that I have a show called Zilla Vision. It's on Tuesday nights on Twitch. Also, be good to one another, right? Like that's the
Let's do
thing.
it.
And listen to more Franklin because he got a good head on his shoulders, man. You have completely. I have hope for millennials talking to you. It's just like
Do
you have.
you really? No, no. Be honest, and I'm not trying to like I'm not. I don't need this for my ego, but like, are you really? You think that?
Yes, absolutely, because I love your approach. You've said multiple things throughout this entire conversation where we were talking about, right? Who changing for the times. You and I both reflected on these rom-coms, but both in their time periods and also what that looks like now. And just
Yeah.
continue growing, like be good to each other. I think you said it best where you're like, I believe everybody deserves a chance for growth. So yeah.
Oh
That's
my
it.
gosh.
And
Yeah.
I'm into it,
I.
Franklin. And
I.
also this was a vibe. This was so much fun.
Oh, you're one of my favorite people of all time now. So be prepared for the dumb DMs. It'd be like asking you which word is funnier.
We're gonna I love it, and also we're gonna next time we're pitching a rom-com.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped. So make sure you follow her at Zilla Vodnas, right?
Yes, at Zilla Vodnas, on YouTube and also Instagram, and, on Twitch at Zilla_Vodnas.
So much fun to talk to, and she's a great comic. I'm excited to see what the future holds for you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it from me. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at frankosworld_. And I'm being dead serious, guys. The show is growing, so I want to extend some more gratitude and thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me and keep taking care of yourselves. And I hope you have a great day. See ya.